Young, gifted, and drafted. With the future of the franchise in mind, how well will you bear the heavy burden of high hopes? Time to learn about this league and yourself.
Not only does Cam Newton lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 13, but with 4 games to go, he's already set the NFL single-season record for rushing TDs in a season by a quarterback. And according to Elias, Newton and Eric Dickerson in '83, the only players in NFL history to start their careers with more than 12 rushing touchdowns in their first 12 games. As for throwing, his 3,297 yards passing, and he needs 443 yards in the last 4 games to break Peyton Manning's single-season rookie record.
And on that note, we are going to bring in Carolina Panthers first-year coach Ron Rivera, a guy that many people in the NFL are familiar with. Ron, thanks for being on the show. We got to get straight to your rookie quarterback, Cam Newton. When you went into the season, and we know you didn't have an off-season with the lockout, what have you accomplished that you did not expect with this quarterback?
You know, we expected a lot, to be honest with you, Chris, but not for it to happen as quickly as it did, to be honest. The one thing that we really, was real pleased with was when he came in, how prepared he had been. Once the draft was over, he went down to IMG, and he spent a whole bunch of time with Chris Winkie. He took the playbook we gave him. Chris was very familiar with it, and really, they just basically started prepping for training camp, and they just kept going and kept going. So when Cam came to camp, it wasn't as if he had seen it or worked on it or anything like that. I know a lot of things that people had talked about, were concerned about, was really just everything from when John Gruden talked about calling a play. I mean, he got in there and he got the rhythm of calling the play in the huddle. He got the rhythm of his dropbacks. He got the rhythm of throwing the ball. I mean, he really just, I think, came in prepared a lot more than I think people had expected him. I know he really kind of, caught us a little bit, but wow, he was ready to go.
Coach, what's amazing to me about Cam Newton is that he was the #1 overall pick, but he seems like he plays with a chip on his shoulder, always trying to go out there and prove people wrong. Similar to a quarterback I play with in Tom Brady, where he still has that chip. Have you recognized that chip that Cam Newton plays with, and you think it's something he'll keep for his entire career?
Oh, most certainly, Teddy. It's amazing because, when we were going through the whole process of evaluating him and the other quarterbacks, he was the one that was mostly scrutinized by not just us, but by everybody else, all the pundits, all the media personnel that were, trying to dig and find out too. And, it was kind of interesting because a lot of that helped us, because every time something would come up that we'd hear a report about something or we hear somebody's opinion about something, we would go out and we either try to debunk that opinion or agree with that opinion. And it really helped us because it brought into focus a lot of little different things that we had to look at. And the more we saw, the more we heard, the more work we did. And we really just kind of dove into this thing, not quite knowing where we were going in terms of all the information we were gathering, but the one thing we did get a good sense for was his personality, and one of the things that we saw about his personality is, like you talked about, is he does have this chip. He does play with this chip, but I think the big thing really is he plays because he enjoys the game, he loves the game, but he's got so much he wants to prove to himself. That's what drives him is he really wants to prove to himself, show to himself that he is an NFL quarterback, that he can become one of the all-time greats.
Ron, the truly great ones seem to be able to elevate everybody's play around them. I look back to your days as Chicago Bears with Mike Singletary in the middle and the way that defense performed. You look at Cam Newton right now. The biggest thing for me when I watch you guys as an offense, I see all of a sudden a disgruntled receiver in Steve Smith, a guy that has had issues in the past a little bit, albeit very talented, playing maybe the best he's ever played, the excitement that he has for playing football again. How big of a factor is Cam Newton and what he's brought to this offense and how the guys feel that play around him?
I think that's a great point there, Mark, about, being able to elevate the players around you, because as we've seen offensively, the one nice thing that we had here as far as the offense was concerned was we had playmakers in place. I mean, we had Steve Smith here. We had, a great tandem of running back that with Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams, that were ready to go again. And we had an offensive line that, we had to revitalize, get them going again. And it's a pretty veteran group. I mean, 4 of the 5 guys are veteran guys that have played together before. We have a rookie, and Byron Bell's played extremely well. And then we went out and we got a couple of marquee tight ends that have been outstanding. They really have it. Again, talking about Steve Smith and the 2 young receivers that have done such a nice job. and Brandon LaFell and Legadou Nani that have really helped us as a football team. And because of Cam's abilities, those guys were playing at a good, solid level. Well, Cam playing at a good, high level has helped them as well.
Coach, you referenced the due diligence that you did on Cam Newton before you drafted him. He recently sat down with ESPN, the magazine, and he talked about losing and making mistakes. Here's what he had to say.
When you lose and you feel like you've done every single thing that you could have did to, succeed in this game or this particular play, and it doesn't happen, it affects me this amount. And then you look at somebody else, you look across the room or you look across the bench and you see somebody else and they messed up and it's like, oh, man, we get it the next play. Are you serious? How many times is it going to be, man, we get it next time, we get it next time. Next time, you're going to look up and it's going to be the last play of the game.
Coach, how much easier does it make your job that Cam Newton, at least publicly, seems to say and do a lot of the right things?
Oh, believe me, it makes it tremendously easy. Because, again, a lot of things that he talks about, the messages that we're trying to get across to our guys. Coming in, there were a lot of things that we had to change because it was a tough season last year. It was a team that had gone 2-14, and they were looking for answers. And, now we're starting to find these answers. Now we're starting to play better and better. The one thing that I really love, is that old saying that, if it didn't hurt, if it really didn't hurt deep down, that meant it didn't matter to you. And with this young man, things really do matter. They matter a lot. And his teammates see that, and I think it's infectious. I think a lot of his teammates understand it. And I got parts of that interview. And one thing that he said I really liked was that, he doesn't want it to be acceptable. He doesn't believe it should be acceptable. And it's hard for others that when you see that to say, oh, well, yeah, he's right. We'll get it next time. No, you can't have that type of attitude. It's always about what you're doing right here and now.
Robin, before we let you go, just can you talk about just the coach's willingness to embrace the new quarterback coming into this league because they are running spread offenses, unique offenses. Mm-hmm. You're seeing it with Tim Tebow, certainly in Denver with the zone reads. And we see Jonathan Stewart at Oregon ran a certain type of option spread, and certainly Cam did some of his. Do you see this evolving, and maybe some of us are too stubborn to acknowledge that it's going in another direction here?
Well, I think it all really depends on the type of quarterback you're going to have. I mean, what's happening right now is that the quarterbacks are evolving and changing to a degree. You do see a lot more of the zone read. And, one thing that, we talked about this, I've talked about this before, is that, the thing that we noticed as we were going through this process, all the top quarterbacks that came out in the draft basically came out of some sort of spread offense, some sort of zone read scheme, kind of a lot like what Peyton was doing in Indy. So a lot of these guys in their heyday in college were throwing between probably 30 and 45 passes. So, that means they're throwing the ball almost 600 times a season. And when you watch every throw, like we watched every one of Cam's throws, every one of his touchdown throws, every one of his incompletions. We watched them on all the long throws, the short throws, the three-step throws, the five, all those things that we could get out of watching the tape on this young man. And we said, one of the criticisms was, well, he can't make every throw. But when you watch 600 throws, you're sitting there going, well, okay, he throws the fade well. Okay, he throws the bang eight, nice. Oh, man, what a great post throw. Oh, look at the 700. So we saw all those things. So what's happening, Mort, is I think is in today's game, you're seeing guys that are already developed in throwing the ball because they throw it so much in college football now.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Best of luck with a strong finish.
Good luck, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.